So welcome. It is wonderful to have everyone here. I'd like to first acknowledge that we are gathering on the lands of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples on their unceded territory. I will also acknowledge, because that 9 o'clock midnight element is important for everyone on Zoom, that we are broadcasting through our campuses in New Jersey as well for the Lenni Lenape people and their territories. I would invite our speakers to offer any territorial acknowledgements that they wish to offer for where they are coming from, in part because I may not know, and in part because I may not know how to pronounce the names if they are not familiar to me. We have 4 wonderful speakers. In the interest of time, I will keep my introductions and welcomes to all of you fairly brief. First up, mercifully not too late in Ottawa time, is Rob McLennan, who I probably do not need to introduce for most people here. Born in Ottawa, Canada's glorious capital city, Rob McLennan currently lives in Ottawa, where he is home full-time with 2 wee girls he shares with Christine McNair. The author of more than 30 trade books of poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, he won the John Newlove Poetry Award in 2010, the Council for the Arts in Ottawa Mid-Career Award in 2014, and was longlisted for the CBC Poetry Prize in 2012 and 2017. In March 2016, he was inducted into the Verse Ottawa Hall of Honor. His most recent titles include the poetry collection, The Book of Smaller, University of Calgary Press 2022, and a suite of pandemic essays, Essays in the Face of Uncertainties from Mansfield Press. An editor and publisher, he runs Above Ground Press, Periodicities, a journal of poetry and poetics, and Touch the Donkey. I'll also point out Rob's chapbooks are on the side here for intermission. Please come take a look. In spring 2020, he won Best Pandemic Beard from Coach House Books via Twitter, which I believe, when we switch over to him, will be demonstrably true, in honor of which he is very proud, extremely proud, and mentions constantly. He spent the 2007 to 2008 academic year in Edmonton as writer in residence at the University of Alberta. I remember that time well, and regularly post reviews, essays, interviews, and other notices at robmclennan.blogspot.com. I will turn over the floor to Rob and step to the side to make sure that I can ensure he is spotlighted for the screen. The floor is yours,
Rob. Thank you. I find Zoom reading sort of weird, especially like knowing you have the big screen. I did a Zoomy talk for Armand Rufo at Queen's a couple years ago, and I just kept wanting to put my eye to the camera. So you have like just knowing that there's a room somewhere like a big eye. I think that's really funny. Okay. I'm going to read some stuff. I have a brand new chapbook that I made, the Alta Vista Improvements. I sent a bunch of copies as handout because I just think handouts are fun. And I was wearing my Paris Review t-shirt today, hoping it would prompt an acceptance, but that didn't work out yet. Not a rejection, at least. I've heard nothing. I'm pretending that's positive. So I'm just going to read from this, I think. Yes. And if anyone is holding a copy of this at the in-person event, don't follow along, because that's just irritating. If I get a word wrong, you'll know. The Alta Vista Improvements. 1. To suffer detours, this through line of patchwork housing outcrop, a craft of optimism, ignorance. The internet equally bears each alphabet. Our 1950s dream house, capacious backyard, deep. Trees peak and ripple an undefinable mental space. Lower sheets, they postcard, feet fade from the offset. 2. City ward named for connecting tissue, thoroughfare. Did Thor invent lightning, or did lightning invent Thor? Moment season, schedule, appreciations, the rumble of city bus, a fire truck. Disambiguated, suburban fractals, bees forged hexagons, such minimal density, and everything we construct either collapse or a half-life of centuries poison the lake. It is possible to exist without realizing. 3. Oversimplified, abbreviated streets, an architectural promise. Every fourth yard, chlorinated pool water. David Hockney ripples. 4. Sketch of hedges, fence marks, house, house, house. Is it possible to not be a story of disappearance, a monstrous infill consuming former yard disgorged, obsolete? Kevin Verone, history is punctuated by verticals, parallel marks and geometric irregularities, turns round, the mind expects the grid. What spring thaws reveal 9 months of continuous construction, chord and bell. 5. This viewed obstruction, frontier boundaries where once had been, a consternation of paved sound, green space, confidence. I put my house in order. We know our histories, etched, washed out hollow rhythms, distractions, gap the paths. Such grammar, loss, mere words, arranged on paper. 6. A day to silence, summer, a poem gentrifies, poorly framed and captured, expand the page, tear down the yard, this shoddy construction. By definition, you can still hold your breath. So supposedly, I'm also to talk about chapbooks. I make a lot of chapbooks. Above Ground Press will be 30 technically in July. I'm up to about, I looked at my list, I'm up to about 1,268 items, probably about maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of which are chapbooks. So I make a lot of chapbooks. And had I not been reading tonight, I would have been stapling a new chapbook by William Villiers, which I can't do at my desk. I have to do it downstairs. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'll put it up on the screen. Look at that. That's a brand new thing. It's not even stapled yet. That's so exciting. The author certainly hasn't seen it. I just folded most of them tonight, so that'll be fun. That'll announce in March. He's a Montreal poet who did translations of a poet from many moons ago, hundreds of years ago in France. I never know what anyone wants to know about chapbooks, so if there's any questions, I'm much better at answering questions. What the hell does anyone want to know? No one cares. I make books. It's I've built my empire on photocopies and blogs, so to speak. Summer pandemic. 1. Reading Etel Adnan's Seasons, I perch in pre-cooked car awaiting our cat in his follow-up appointment to recent dental extraction. This body as a means to dialogue and his teeth held in synaptic space. From this lone parking lot in Ottawa's East End, veterinarian staff report his outbursts, frustrated at their prodding. He is such a mood. 2. I read my book, a constant shift of morning shallows. She mentions stiffness, rain, and wind. Under sun's corrosive eye, self-conscious breath of breathing, face masked, and yet, to say the truth, 3 withering dandelion heads in the passenger side, half an orange crayon on the floor mat, a shadowed road, a crosswind. 3. The hottest Vancouver on record, the hottest Ottawa on record, the hottest Toronto on record, the hottest Pakistan on record. Our own details have betrayed us. Adnan, our civilization's growth is cancerous. 4. As we move through seasons, clouds, this breezeless air and asphalt of reflected heat. This is a time travel story. For sale, cat's Elizabethan collar, newly worn. The painkillers we administer with the usual contusions. At 9 years old, his age is finally matched to mine, old enough to undermine the logic of the predetermined body. 5. Confronts the table leg, the chair leg, his water bowl, and loses. This plastic cone, a rhetorical theater he can't conceive, a week's worth of auto-generated hangdog expression. 6. 4 teeth removed, including, ironically enough, his feline canines. Costs enough we could have purchased another car. Our cat is now a car, Small engine roars and roars and hums. I drive him finally home, a threaded language for every future. He is pissed off for a long time after that. Oh, God. Quartet for an end of landscape with farmhouse. 1. At first, it was his stretch of fields, a lease for neighbors expanding yield after health forced him to pause. The spring my father couldn't plant, Ontario sky, a variable spelling, monochrome, exaggeration of slow cloud. His sleep apnea, diabetes plus, that set retirement to root. Downstream, we watched 3 tractors pull their crop of soybean, acres clean across a morning. A few years later, the land, shorn off and sold from the base camp of retained remaining homestead, farmhouse, sheds, the barn, his cancer surgery, surpassing marks, a marked and marker, held his ground, a land condensed. He drove his gator to survey the boundaries where he could not walk. As ALS crept further, strolled electric wheelchair up the laneway, hands curled up around the dog's leash, bounding forth. 2. A farmer with no sons but one who chose a separate path, embroidery of a curve away, a daughter thus invisible, these tiny changes made to earth. 3. The nagging suspicion of a counter of exchange, an erased fence line he could trace, ungrammatical, a bird song custom purposed to a steady measured stitch of rain, a phantom set of tree limbs, trails to watch him grasp the cipher signal of each leaf, yet occupy such bounds of silence, an unending pair of ambient errant children, a moment as if to stumble still. 4. My father, long and overcast. Upon his death, pandemic, house is slowly emptied, harvest, strata of a life well lived, disassembled, scattered, donations and inheritance alike, is newly occupied through rental agreements, the shake of one good hand, 8 decades of tenure, my father's cremated remains, boy, am I, as hand-drawn figures in the landscape, offered up as ghosts before the sun bleach of the spring, these blueprint pencils fade. I accidentally had a sequence of poems about my middle child. She wanted a fish, so I wrote a poem about her getting a fish. And then within a day, the fish died. So it's like, oh, for Christ's sake. So I wrote a second poem, and then the second fish died, and then I felt like I was trapped, like I was having to do like these reportings. So they're like 4 poems now because they're like 4 fish. So because I felt like it established something. It's like, oh no, now I have to update it. Okay, so I'll do the second one. Rose collects a second fish to replace the first one. 1. Oh, like, yeah, anyway. 18 hours beyond introducing Princess to aerated, tested 10-gallon mirror, she lay on blue pebbled bed. Our original purchase, she remained unmoored, unmoved until we salvaged her body, sunk to the boards like a stone. Our young ladies announced, the fish is dead. Perhaps she is but asleep, we countered, worried as to their reactions. Reader, she was never asleep. 2. The fish is dead, and it's so lonely by a brightly colored resin castle, mermaid, limb. Rose crafts a portrait profile of her fish, an X across the single visible eye. If freedom ever but one light brighter than the other. In the center, Princess's former roommate snails draws circles in their pleats. 3. The fish we have is not the one we leave behind. A second visit, return and acquisition, sparkle, added after consultation, testing, retesting. Yours is the finest water I've seen in months, the staff claimed from his corner of the PetSmart territory. How what's said differently is difference enough. And yet, this new fish, dead, a second body and a step of days. 24 hours later, it is so lonely on a limb. 4. We pause, refresh. Christine admits, I don't wish to explain death a third time. What else to add? The explanation, no different. This is death, and death a constant. There is nothing further to articulate. Both fish are dead. I head back in, receipt in hand, once more attempting resolution. Answers, reimbursement. The snails contain such fully clothed intelligence. They leave such marks. 5. The fragmentation of this liquid hope. I know, it's like a whole thing. She's 9. What do you want? Okay. Rose finally gets a third fish. 1. 2 weeks beyond original purchase, an assembly of 10-gallon tank and fish regalia, we appeal a different store, a different treatment plan to seek out alternate advice. 2 fish dead across 3 days, and how far my daughter's grief might fall. A slate of unknown causes, and how to best inquest the possibilities of poor water quality, pre-existing illness, or aquatic stress upon their wee fish hearts. Our 2 snails abide. 2. As they say, third time's the charm. To draw this thin black line, a gallows map. Rose's artwork of her 2 lost pets, profiles, single eye, a hand-drawn X, all things made out of nothing, something, a space forced into mirror, and a physical fact of language. She wants a fish, how far we've come, committed to this depth of waterlogged absence. 2 uncomplicated snails, and the tank set up now temporarily theirs alone. 3. The sheet of blank paper Rose pilfers from my writing desk, her school stash array of markers through which she views the heavens. The fish in the tank is air, the fish in the tank is earth, the gravel in the tank a vital function. 4. Rose and Christine dock at Big Al's Ottawa East, how present a shipwreck into sentences, the way a word can puncture, drill, asphyxiate. Here we listen for familiar words. Rose plucks a new replacement fish. Now what to name it? Christine suggests sapphire, but Rose lands blacktooth, laughs her wild turbulence. Long backward loop towards imagination. She meets the challenge of water with water. There is no fire. She boils, burns, unrestricted by grammar. 5. A flutter on the water's surface. This hymn to pet ownership. Synchronal first attempt. This third, once home. This active male, peeled and petaled, blue-black, and a slow acclimation to the water's temperature. He floats within transparent pouch that bobs and hovers along as a meridian, contained serenely, swirls, his blind incessant impulse without knowledge. Let algae creep, arise, this fish will live. There is another poem, because this one lasted only like 7 months. But 7 months, you know, and I think the other fish has lasted like a year, but it's not looking right. Okay, I'm gonna read one more poem and then I will be done and stuff. I'm presuming that works out for time. Thank you for letting me be on your big screen. You've turned off the sound from the room. I can't hear anyone anymore reacting. I'm just all by myself now. Okay, one more poem. Autobiography of Bloom. 1. The limits of this lack of definition. First snows, the powdered framework that erodes often contrary to what remains, two-pronged, a line repeats, evaporated, warm weather, the weaponization of arrangement. 2. It snows, but does not stay. Around these parts, whole generations of trick-or-treaters securing hand-picked costumes under layered thermal strata, sweaters, jackets, scarves, and snow pants. Only masks betray. And what are you supposed to be? A Dracula? 2 years back, carting jogging stroller and our two wee costumed monsters, a bearing saturated beneath unseasonal deluge of cold October rainfall, their pillowcases stuffed to overflow. Today's patterning is seasonal, delayed within the bounds of composition, sun's pretentious rays, a patterning of dusty cloud. 3. It remains too warm today for supersaturated air, this atmospheric vapor of water droplets to crystallize or shape, as form requires, each flake that nucleates around a dust particle, ashes to powder, our bodies fall into the shape of snow. 4. The season wears an air of mystery. Should we turn up the heat, secure the garden from frost? Christine, I opened the bedroom window last night for ventilation. Our two children barefoot in leaf-marbled yard. To breach this memory, even as it forms, a splinter snowflake lodged. The sun is hollow, an embroidered sequence or a key into this language. 5. Imagine I walk out the door directly into airborne sea of snowflakes, if only. Does anyone got a question about chapbooks? What do you guys want to know? It's all quiet out there. I can't hear anything. No one's speaking. Should I keep going? Like, what am I?
I'd really like a copy of your, I'd like a copy of your chapbook because I grew up in Alta Vista, and I
did you really?
one of those 1950s red brick house on Kilbourne Avenue, and
that's just around the corner from us.
Yeah, 1483 Kilbourne Avenue. Last time I was in Ottawa, it was still there. Hopefully, it still is. Yeah.
The street or the house?
The house.
The street's still there.
Yeah, the bus stop's right outside it. And Alta Vista Elementary. I went to Alta Vista Elementary.
Yeah, that's where our little one goes. We're right across from St. Timothy's.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, the Anglican Church. My mom used to be the soloist at the Anglican Church. Anyway, that was an unexpected surprise to hear poems about Alta Vista.
Where live?
Yes, I want a copy of that chapbook.
Well, are you near the venue?
No, I'm in Victoria. No, I'm in Victoria, but I'm coming to Vancouver next week. So if James can grab one of those chapbooks,
tell James to take them for you.
I'll pop in and visit him downtown next week and get my.
Yeah, I got like a stack of them.
Yeah, I want my very own copy.
Yeah, it's my 1950s dream house.
Yeah. Okay, here we've got somebody else has more of a comment than a question. This is from Isa Vergara. I really enjoyed the consistency of the tone of each poem, as long as that number, as well as that numbering thing you got going on. Yeah, you do seem to like to number things.
Well, it also helps that that's part of one larger manuscript. So, there will be some echoes of tone that go throughout. I'm sure if I read from multiple projects, there'd be a shift of some sort, structurally or tone-wise or anything. But yeah, cool.
Okay, here's somebody typing another question. This is from Peter Taylor. How fast can you type? Wow, Peter, type faster.
Are you asking him or asking me? I don't see his comment.
No, he's gonna type a question for you.
Okay.
I haven't seen it yet.
Because I can type.
Oh, he can talk. He can unmute himself and talk. You can talk. Yes.
I can type. The literally only smart thing I did as a high school anything was a teenager was taking 2 typing courses back to back. It's literally the only smart thing I did during that entire era of my life.
Rob, I'm in Ontario too, so we're both up after the streetlights are on. My question is, you have an astonishing record of the number of books that you've published. How do you store them, distribute them, make them fundable? I mean, I just see a house filled with shelf after shelf after shelf, unless you're doing it print on
That's what we're
demand or.
doing. That's totally what we had to buy a house. We had to buy a house, Peter Taylor. That's why we have a house in Alta Vista. We would have had a spare bedroom, but it's the chapbook room. Because most of the last 15 years of Above Ground is still technically in print. So that's a lot of titles. And actually of the 1,200 and whatever titles of Above Ground, I'd say half or more are within the last 15 years.
Wow.
Well,
I'm impressed.
It's fun to make stuff.
I think when you're finished, your house should have a little plaque on the front. Here was most of Canadian publishing.
Yeah, really. There's going to be a lot of paper with my name on it. The Rob McLennan Memorial clear cut. That's going to be a real thing, wouldn't it? But that's pretty much it. I just make stuff. It's fun to make stuff. And how do I distribute? Well, Above Ground, I've always had subscribers, annual subscribers. Gary Geddes told me in about 1994 that was how he kept Quadrant editions, the press he started, which eventually became Cormorant. That's how he kept the first 3 years going, was through subscribers. So I have about 160 people that just get every little papery thing I make within a calendar year, which is usually really good for my cash flow between about October and February. So, you know, it's nice knowing that there's that amount of people who trust my judgment, even if they don't like everything, right? So yeah, so I mail a lot of things. I mail 2 or 3 envelopes a month if I can. I'd mail more, but I think my wife tries to slow me down for the sake of budgeting. There's some waving happening in Vancouver.
Yeah, I think they want you to unmute them, Evelyn. I think you're the only host now.
You need to unmute the actual physical room. They're in there waving and stuff.
I don't know why they can't unmute themselves, but
Evelyn, what have you done? Evelyn, you're even muted yourself. The space is mine.
Yeah, they were making noise a while ago.
Oh God, okay.
So I muted them, but now
I like your noise.
I don't know how to.
Can you hear us now, Evelyn?
Yeah, we can hear you.
There we are.
Okay.
Evelyn took away my audience.
And here's, I'll be able to fix it as soon as the Zoom update finishes installing, which is done now.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can? Yay, you can hear us. Can I ask a question about making chapbooks? And oh, I should stand here.
Yeah, stand up here.
I'd like to hear about how you're folding all your chapbooks. You're spending your evenings folding chapbooks. So what other skills? I like folding things. I like cutting things and stapling things. Does that give me enough qualities to have a chapbook business, or what other qualities do you need besides liking to fold paper?
You have to go to a photocopy place.
Oh.
No, I fold and staple all of it because it just seemed like when I was broken in my 20s, I didn't see the point in paying 2 cents or 4 cents or whatever for a staple. So I bought a long arm. I've just been doing it myself, and it's kind of monkey work. I do it in front of the TV. It's not really. I've done it for so long that it's not anything. It doesn't feel like a task, and it just like I'd rather spend the money making another book. You know, especially with the volume I'm doing. But yeah, like I do 1,000 copies of Touch the Donkey, and I do 350 of chapbooks. So I spent a lot of time folding and stapling, but it's being organized. I've gone through 6 long arms, I think, over 30 years.
That's impressive.
That's why we have to have a house.
Other questions about chapbooks?
Ask one more. Yeah. And how do you work with your authors? I'm wondering about the collaboration on the design. Do they come to you with a thought for the cover, or do you come up with a cover, or how do you work together on that?
I usually ask if they have thoughts, and some of them have very specific thoughts. Some want to design their own, and that's fine. That's kind of one less thing for me to do, I suppose. And you know, it runs the reins. Ray Armantrout just told me to do what I wanted, which is like, really cool. Okay. Like I send proofs now. I didn't used to send proofs for the longest time. I just sort of made them. And then occasionally I'd have someone say, you really messed this up. So I kind of start sending proofs. But yeah, no, it depends on the author. I ask do you have any thoughts? And some do and some don't. And some have an image and we sort of play around with, or I play around with the design and see what they like. And some are fine with it and some have very specific ideas. And yeah, some have a cover they just send me. Oh, I want to do this. Like, yeah, okay, sure. It's your thing, you know, as long as like it's not, I can do color now on covers, which I couldn't before, so that's nice. So it sort of ups some of the quality. But it really, yeah, it really varies. And I pay authors 50 copies, which is a lot, I've been told. But the best way to get a book distributed is give it to the author, really. Then they can do what they want with it.
Thank you. But now we want to hear nightmare stories. Are there any? Tell us the nightmare collaborations. But no names.
Well, there's nothing more frustrating than spending time and resources that used to be more limited than they are now on putting something together by an author, and then I put it out and then just they vanish. It's like, well, I could have done that for somebody else, you know, because it's I kind of think that part. I think the biggest thing in a way I can offer is sort of a distribution and networking. Like the books might not be aesthetically pleasing in the way that certain people would like them to be, but they're going to get out to a lot of people, and they're going to get out to people that are like quality people, you know. Like I've got a subscriber base that's across North America and even a few in Europe, and they're predominantly other writers. So even if I don't sell any, I've got 160 people across North America and into parts of Europe that are seeing this thing, and you know, I would think that's a pretty big benefit. So it becomes frustrating when an author kind of vanishes like 5 minutes before the thing comes out or 5 minutes after. It's like, well, then why did we go through this?
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Does that happen very often?
Rarely. It does happen rarely, but it still irritates me, even from like 20 years ago. And I will not mention names. Well, that's just mean. That's mean. People have lives. Things happen. Things move. But yeah, there are no specific nightmares. Like there are frustrations when I get something wrong and I have to reprint something entirely. But that's not really a nightmare. That's just sort of a frustration.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? I'm hogging all the questions. I think we're all right.
Carefully on screen. I would like to thank Rob very much and point out that his chapbooks were an inspiration for students in my typography class in the fall.
Oh yeah.
It's Kool-Aid.
What's the Kool-Aid dye anyway?
It's the well, we'll call it Kool-Aid. In the interest